In recent years, many workplace deaths attributed to violence have gained much public attention due to increased media coverage. It seems as though every other week, another story is reported on a violent death occurring at a workplace because of a disgruntled or former employee, a domestic dispute playing out at work, or a heated dispute between workers. Homicide has become a leading cause of fatal occupational injuries in the United States. While homicide is the most extreme form of workplace violence, it represents a very small number of workplace violence incidents. Most incidents that occur at the workplace deal with lesser cases of assault, threats, harassment, and other violent acts, and generally receive less media coverage. It is estimated that nearly 2 million American workers report being a victim of workplace violence each year, with many more acts of violence going unreported. This training program will discuss impact of workplace violence, types of workplace violence, risk factors, warning signs, preventing, reducing workplace violence, and response actions. The impact of workplace violence on an organization is tremendous. A single incident can have ripple effects felt far beyond just the workplace. There can be a loss of life or physical or psychological injuries sustained by a victim or victims. There can also be emotional and/or physical injuries sustained by the victim's family, friends, and co-workers. There is a financial impact to both the victim and the company as well. It is believed that billions of dollars are lost each year due to workplace violence. Absenteeism, low job performance, paid time off, insurance, litigation, and increased security are just a few of the possible areas in which businesses incur financial cost associated with workplace violence. Workplace violence affects other areas as well. The adverse impact on organizations and individuals is wide-ranging and can also include temporary and/or permanent absence of a skilled employee or employees, property damage, theft, and sabotage, productivity impediments, diversion of management resources, increased workers' compensation costs, and increased personnel costs. Prevention of workplace violence requires emphasis on prevention and not just a reaction to physical attacks. Prevention programs that do not consider workplace violence in all forms and threats are unlikely to be effective. To address the issue, you first have to define it. Workplace violence is any act or threat of physical violence, harassment, intimidation, or other threatening, disruptive behavior that occurs at the work site or is work-related, which creates anxiety, fear, and a climate of distrust in the workplace. It can be in the form of offensive language, threats and verbal abuse, intimidation, harassment, emotional abuse, physical assault, stalking, bullying, and even homicide. Workplace violence falls mostly into 4 broad categories. The categories can be helpful in creating strategies to prevent workplace violence. Each category requires a different approach for prevention. The 4 types are: Type 1, criminal intent. Violent acts by criminals who have no other connection with the workplace but enter to commit robbery or other crime. A deadly weapon is usually involved, increasing the risk of fatal injury. Workers who exchange cash with customers as part of the job, work late night or overnight, and/or work alone are at greatest risk. Type 2, customer, client, patient. This tends to be violence directed at employees by customers, clients, patients, students, inmates, or any others for whom an organization provides services. The offender usually becomes violent during the course of a normal transaction or interaction in which the worker is performing their normal work duties. Violent behaviors toward some workers in this category, such as mental health workers, prison guards, may be constant, even routine while on the job. Type 3, co-worker. Violence against co-workers, supervisors, or managers by a present or former employee. Often, Type 3 violence occurs after one or more of increasingly confrontational and hostile work-related disputes. There isn't any indication of one industry or occupation being more or less subject to this type of workplace violence. Although managers and supervisors might be at a greater risk due to incidents being caused by workplace disputes, any coworker could be affected. Type 4, personal relationship. Violence committed in the workplace by someone who doesn't work there, but has a personal relationship with an employee, such as an abusive spouse or domestic partner. Type 4 violence is typically domestic violence which enters the workplace. Victims are mostly female, but all co-workers are generally affected. Certain factors have been identified which increase the risk for some workers at certain workplaces. Jobs where money is exchanged with the public and working with volatile, unstable people puts employees at risk. Employees such as store clerks, taxi drivers, and mom-and-pop shop staff fall into this category. Working alone or in isolated areas can contribute to the potential for violence. There are many workers who are at risk, such as delivery drivers and law enforcement personnel. Providing services and care for others increases the possibility of violent abuse. Healthcare professionals, public service workers, school faculty and staff, bus and train operators, and customer service employees are among the most common targets. Working in establishments where alcohol is served. Employees, including bartenders, waitstaff, and security, are some of the possible victims. Additionally, time of day and location are contributing factors. These include working late at night or in high crime rate areas. These factors should be considered when addressing issues of workplace violence. When risk factors can be identified, the risk of workplace violence can be minimized if appropriate steps are taken. One of the best protections employers can offer their workers is to establish a zero-tolerance policy toward workplace violence. The policy should cover all employees, patients, clients, visitors, contractors, and anyone else who may come in contact with company personnel. It is never easy to determine if any particular workplace situation will become violent or not. Decisions about what to do are not always black and white or out in the open. Actual threats should always be taken seriously and responded to immediately. When there is not an actual threat, judgment and one's senses should be trusted. The gut feeling you get when talking to people should be respected. If you believe someone is dangerous, take the appropriate and proper precautions. There are some indicators which may warn of potential trouble. These signs may be evident in perpetrators of violence, those who are victims, and those involved in domestic violence. While it is possible only one of the indicators will occur, it is more likely that a pattern will develop or they will represent a change from normal behavior. You must remember, these are just possible indicators. Their presence does not necessarily mean a violent incident will occur. There may be indicators of another type of problem the person is dealing with, such as depression, bereavement, or illness. If you notice any indications in a fellow employee or other personnel in the workplace, you should bring it to the attention of your supervisor. This will allow the situation to be addressed regardless of why the indicator is present. Early intervention of a possible violent situation is the key to preventing an escalation of the situation. Some examples of performance and/or conduct indicators include attendance problems, decreased productivity, concentration issues, noticeable changes in behavior, outbursts of anger and aggression, continual excuses, blame, hypersensitivity to criticism, recent acquisition or fascination with weapons, apparent obsession with a supervisor or coworker or employee grievance, and homicidal, suicidal comments or threats. Workplace violence can be avoided or minimized if appropriate precautions are taken. No single strategy is appropriate for all workplaces, but all workers and employers should assess the risk of violence in their workplace and take appropriate action to reduce those risks. Through assessment of the worksite, methods can be identified and noted for reducing the likelihood of workplace violence incidents occurring. Methods for prevention include a variety of controls and steps. While no workplace can be 100% safe from workplace violence, much can be accomplished to minimize the risk. The best prevention strategy is to maintain a work environment which minimizes negative feelings, such as isolation, resentment, and hostility among employees. Although no workplace can be perceived as perfect by every employee, there are several steps which can help create a professional, healthy, and caring work environment. These include, but are not limited to, promoting sincere, open, and timely communication among managers and employees, providing avenues for employee complaints and concerns with prompt feedback, offering opportunities for professional development, fostering a family-friendly work environment, promoting quality of life issues such as facilities and job satisfaction, and maintaining impartial and consistent discipline for employees who exhibit improper conduct and poor performance. Maintaining a secure and physically safe workplace through engineering controls is always part of any good strategy in preventing workplace violence. Some possible measures to consider include installing alarm systems and other security devices, such as closed-circuit cameras, card key access systems, photo identification badges, and panic buttons, installing metal detectors to detect guns, knives, or other weapons, on-site security services, required visitor check-in before granting access to building, mirrors placed at hallway intersections or concealed areas, limit access and egress, lock all unused doors to limit access in accordance with local fire codes, install bright, effective lighting both indoors and outdoors, replace burned-out lights and broken windows and locks, keep company vehicles well maintained, and lock vehicles at all times. Changes in work practices and policies via administrative controls can help prevent workplace violence. Establish a positive repertoire with local police and other emergency responders by reporting all incidents of violence and providing them with physical layouts of facilities to expedite investigations. As general policy, employees should report all assaults or threats to a supervisor or manager. If the violent act is perpetrated by supervisory personnel, then employees should contact a different supervisor to inform. Logbooks and reports of every incident must be kept to help determine any necessary actions to prevent recurrences. Advise employees of company procedures for requesting police assistance or filing charges when assaulted, and help them do so if necessary. Education and training are also vital components of any prevention plan. Employees must know what workplace violence is, be able to recognize warning signs, and know what to do when confronted with a possible violent situation. Educating employees on ways to effectively deal with conflict and how to manage stress are also viable options to help prevent workplace violence. Employees must also be properly trained regarding all aspects of the workplace violence safety program. Workplace violence occurs in many different forms. There is no one particular method for responding to all volatile workplace situations. Your safety and the safety of those around you is the most important thing to remember when responding to a situation. Here are some basic steps you might attempt when faced with a volatile situation. Remain calm and avoid confrontation. Attempt to diffuse the situation peacefully. Don't argue or disagree. Keep a safe distance from the perpetrator. Walk away from the confrontation if possible. Seek the assistance of fellow employees, and report to your supervisor as soon as possible. If the situation involves violent or threatening behavior which poses an immediate danger to personnel or property, you should do the following. Secure your personal safety first. Leave the area if your safety is at risk. If warranted, call 911 and other appropriate emergency contacts, particularly if the situation requires immediate medical and/or law enforcement personnel. Secure the safety of others and contact your supervisor. Always talk with your employer about specific steps and company procedures on how to handle a threat or possible threat in your workplace. Workplace violence is currently on the rise, and there is no reason to believe it will subside. Your workplace can be made safer by recognizing the signs of a potential violent situation and using the guidelines presented in this video. Remember, your safety begins with you, and educating yourself on safe work practices goes a long way to diffusing any potential harmful situation.